Lesson 5.8, completing the square, part 2. Part 1 of the process was learning how to find the magic number and factor the equation. Now part 2 is actually using the process to get the answers or the solutions. And so our first step was finding that perfect square trinomial equals some kind of constant. And so we'll start from that step and solve these. So if I have x inside of here, I can't simply square root just x. I need to square root this whole thing, because this x minus 2 is getting squared. I also couldn't add 2 to both sides because the x is minus 2, it's grouped together. So my first step is to make this not be squared by square rooting. Square and square root cancel, I'm left with x minus 2. Remember that when we square root an equation we get two answers, plus and minus, that would be 7. And then all I have to do is add 2 to both sides. So I would get x equals, put your 2 first, so it's 2 plus or minus 7. And then you can get your two answers from that. One is going to be from 2 plus 7. The other one's going to be from 2 minus 7. So that would be 9 and negative 5. All right, number 2. Very same setup. X plus 2, that amount squared needs to equal 14. To get rid of the squared, I would square root both sides. They cancel. I'm left with x plus 2 equals the square root of 14. I cannot square root 14. I do need to put that it would be a positive and a negative square root of 14. Can't simplify it or anything, and then I just subtract 2. So x would equal, put your negative 2 first, plus or minus the square root of 14. You don't have to go any further. Those are your two answers. And then number 6, square root both sides. Oop, that's a negative. Square and square root cancel, bring out x minus 1. Square root of a negative, remember, is an I, so you get plus or minus 5i. Add 1 to both sides. So you get x equals 1 plus or minus 5i. And those would be your two answers. So the only ones you have to keep going with are when you get what's called rational answers, when they square root nicely. And then you can get numbers that aren't square roots anymore. This one is irrational, and this one would be called complex. So let's see if we can put all the steps together and take an equation and solve it by completing the square. So what we haven't seen yet is where there's a GCF here. We don't want something x squared. We want to get rid of that. So I'm actually going to divide everything by negative 5. And you could put it in front, but you really don't need to, because remember when we would have a number pulled in front that has nothing to do with the solution. So I'm just going to leave it off. So that would cancel, so we get x squared, that'll be a plus. I think 80 divided by 5 is 16. And then 140 divided by 5 is 28. And it should always be set equal to 0 before you do that. Then I want to keep my A and my B. Then I put plus blank. Equals, subtract your 28 over, plus blank. Remember, to find the magic number, you're taking 16 divided by 2, which is 8, and squaring it. Magic number is 64. From there, I should be able to factor this side, because now it should be a perfect square trinomial. That would be 8 times 8 makes 64, and 8 plus 8 makes 16. So I go ahead and write it where it's that times itself, that quantity squared. 64 plus negative 28 is 36. And now you should see how this looks like how these did. That's why we just practiced them first. So then I would start to get x by itself by square rooting both sides. That'll just give me x plus 8 equals positive and negative 6. And then all I have to do is subtract 6. So I get negative 6 plus or minus 6. I want you to get two answers. One's going to be negative 6 plus 6. One is negative 6 minus 6. So that gets 0 and negative 12. Again, these are finding the solutions or the roots or the x-intercepts of a graph. All right, and then number 8, remember we don't want an a here, so we want to divide everything by 6. So that'll leave me with x squared minus 2x. 1476 divided by 6 is 246. Okay, I'll leave my A and my B plus a blank equals, move the C over, now it's negative, plus blank. Take your B divided by 2 and square it. My magic number is 1. Factor x squared minus 2x plus 1. And that would be x minus 1 times x minus 1, or x minus 1 quantity squared. This would be negative 245. Now I'm ready to start solving. Square root, those cancel. I have x minus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of negative 245. You have to simplify this. For 1, I know an I is going to come out because I'm squaring a negative. Let's also see what perfect squares in 245. 81. I'm sure it's not 64. 49. So picture you're breaking this into square root of negative 49 times the square root of 5. So this would be x minus 1 equals plus or minus 7i square roots of 5. Now you just have to add the 1 over. So x equals 1 plus or minus 7i square roots of 5. And those are your two answers.